Hey everyone, let's talk about the mind body connection when it comes to healing. If you're new here, my name is Marissa Price. I am a liberatory healing practitioner, helping Black women come into our full authenticity, process the trauma that we've experienced, reclaim the power of our lineages, and really just, it feels like that time really to lean into the power that we have internally to heal. And so, if you're new here, please subscribe to my channel if you're interested in content like this in the future. If you are returning, thank you so much for being here. If you're here live, welcome. Thank you for joining. And if you're watching the replay, thank you so much for watching. I do want to mention that I will be facilitating a healing circle this Sunday called Finding Calm in Chaos that you can still register for. I think we have 16 people registered so far. So, thank you if you've already registered. But I will link this in the chat if you're here live. And it is sliding scale. So join us this Sunday. I think it got cut off. Let me put that in there one more time. And yeah, if you're here live, let us know how you're doing. There's a lot going on at the moment. There's a lot going on in the world. Um, yeah, personally, professionally, for a lot of us. So yeah, just a check in, see how y'all are doing. I do want to thank you all so much for the comments that you've been leaving on my videos. I do not take those for granted, right? Because that is the primary goal of my YouTube channel is to build community. And so anytime that you take the time out of your day to leave a comment, to let me know it resonated, to share how it connected with you, or to share resources, that is valued. And so I just want to say that. And so let's get into the mind body connection in healing, right? So many of us have had to be disconnected from our bodies for so long. And I just put this on my YouTube community tab, right? Other people have felt and feel entitled to our bodies, to our labor. I speak a lot about toxic jobs and the impacts of toxic jobs on our nervous systems. But to even connect that to what we're experiencing, right? Jobs often feel entitled to our skills, to our energy, to our labor. And we see that in the way that we are treated so often in these workplaces. With the 300,000 plus, and I read somewhere it was closer, now it's closer to 400,000 Black women who have been laid off or pushed out of the workforce, right? We see how little people truly value our labor and yet still feel entitled to our sacred energy, to our bodies, right? To our time. And so part of healing for me on this journey has really been to protect and preserve and to realize how valuable my power and my energy is, right? Because I've shared a little bit about my experience growing up. That was never truly reflected back to me in the way that it should have been, right? That this immense power exists within me, and people will try to extract it. People will try to exploit it. People will try to convince you that it's not valuable, even though it's what upholds all of these systems, if we're really honest about it, right? So, how are you saying that it's not valuable? Our labor is not valuable, our time, our energy, our skill set, right? That is a lie, right? And they try to convince us of these things to make us doubt ourselves so that they continue to um, exploit us so often, to make it seem like our contributions are worth nothing so that they can underpay us, undervalue us, push us out, all these things. And so they're very real, these forces that we're up against. I just did a talk yesterday with Blacks in Industrial Organizational Psychology, and I talked about this, right? Having to understand the multiple systems of oppression at play that are impacting our experiences in work environments, in community settings, right? Family environments, where people are just openly, and sometimes not even openly, sometimes like undercover, trying to exploit our labor, trying to get our energy, and at the same time convincing us that it's not valuable. right? If it's not valuable, why are you working so hard to exploit, right? To take it, to use it if it's not valuable, if it's worth nothing. And so just even sitting with that question, right? These things are lies that have been told to us so that it can instill and implant these seeds that did not exist at one point, right? To make us question, silence ourselves, mute our voices, feel like our energy is worth nothing. So we just have to accept anything that comes our way. This is a process of really harming our self-esteem, our self-worth, our self-confidence, which again is the message that I wish I would have had as a girl. So much of my work is really the message that I needed growing up that I did not have. Um, Having such low self-esteem, right? Having such low self-confidence in the environments that I was in, and now as an adult, seeing how those wounds that were made so early on, and this is the case for so many of us, right, as Black girls transitioning into womanhood, these wounds show up in the different environments that we find ourselves in, the different settings, the different relationships. And we're wondering sometimes, like, how did I get here? And having to go back to when these wounds were initially created, when we started receiving the message to the topic today that we need to be disconnected from our bodies, that we can't trust how we feel, that we can't heed our intuition, that we can't leave an environment that's harming us. When those wounds were made, that made a really deep impact, right, on our psyches, on the ways that we see the world, see ourselves. And so once we find ourselves in these environments, it's very difficult to then extract ourselves because the wound has already been made, that we've been told this is what we deserve. This is what we should expect, right? And so there's a lot of shaming around raising your standards, right? But what if you were told, right, all throughout your life that you don't even get to have these things? You don't even get to have standards. You just have to accept whatever comes your way. There's a deeper level of healing, processing the trauma of that, and then recovering ultimately your self-worth, right? Your inherent worth outside of what you do for other people, outside of the roles that you fulfill, knowing that you are here on earth because you're worthy, just like anything else that we see living, right? We don't look at a tree and say the tree is unworthy. Of course not. The tree is here, right? And the same with us. We are here on earth. And so our worth is inherent. So just want to say that. But as we come to the topic today, right, the level of disconnection that we have had to feel, right, experience in our bodies, being disconnected from our bodies. So just taking a breath here. Noticing how that feels. Right? So many of us have had to take on layers to survive harsh, unfeeling, uncaring environments that have tried to dehumanize us in multiple different ways. Again, I just spoke about this yesterday, and I hope to speak about this in the future. Again, the trauma of being the only one, which I experienced so often growing up, right? When you're the only one, people feel like they can do whatever they want, right? They can say whatever they want, anything that they may have been thinking to themselves and feeling like, when is the opportunity that I can get to say this? When they see that you're by yourself, that's the time where it comes out, right? And so the level of anger that that creates within us, if you have experienced this, and we have to, again, when you're the only one, who's going to have your back? Who's going to stand up for you, right? A lot of times it's just us having to do all this, and that's not fair. So just to say that, right? But we've had to take on layers to survive. We've had to take on different aspects that maybe are not in line with our personality naturally. I was just speaking to someone about this, right? And I did a post on this, I think it was a few years ago at this point. How much of your personality is actually a trauma response? And this is a question I've had to ask myself. Is this my true personality? Is this a personality that I came here with? Or is this a layer that I've taken on to try to navigate these really harsh environments that I have found myself in from such an early age. So that may be a question to sit with. Know that you're not broken. Nothing's wrong with you for feeling disconnected from your body. Your body has tried to protect you within these settings. So, something that may occur is dissociation. So, feeling like you're kind of floating above your body, that you're not really in your body, you're not even really here or present. That is a mode that your body goes into to protect you, to preserve your sense of self, because it's so important, right? Just to think about the different ways that our body goes in to these modes to protect us. That lets us know how important and sacred our life force is, right? To try to preserve us in these environments. And so, if you've experienced this again, knowing that was the mode that your body was going in to protect you, with the theme of this month, right? Somatic October, understanding how our bodies work, the different tools that exist within our bodies to heal. Self healing has been something I've been studying more about. We have been taught that healing exists outside of us so often in other people's hands that don't always have the understanding of what we've been through, right? Of our families, of our communities, and yet we're supposed to be seeking healing from them. Sometimes we don't find it, right? Sometimes we do, but sometimes we don't. And so when we don't, knowing that we still have tools that exist within us to tap into, right, that we come equipped with, we come fully equipped to heal these wounds that we experience throughout our lives. And then also knowing that it is not an overnight process, right? So there's no quick fix to healing. It is a lifelong process, and you take baby steps day after day after day. Rushdie Cope, her channel is Glamazini on YouTube. She talks about this so often, right? So healing is really setting an intention every day, doing a little step, doing a little step, doing a little step, day after day after day, so that it doesn't feel completely overwhelming and foreign to your body or nervous system, right? You're ingraining a pattern of healing over time. And so this is not something that's a quick fix, which kind of runs counter to the messages that were sold, right? Especially with the culture of social media, that everything is supposed to be fast, quick. Can you do this turnaround 7, 14, 30 days? Healing is a lifelong process. So I do want to say that. Hello, big up yourself. I've been reconnecting with my body more lately. I love that. Yes. And again, it's a process over time. And if you're new to this, please join us this Sunday. So this is beginner friendly, the healing circle that I'll be facilitating. If you're interested in gaining some of these tools that I've been talking about through this month to reconnect with your body, the tools that you have, again, we come fully equipped. We're told that we're here kind of as a blank slate, right? Which is a lie. We don't come here as a blank slate, right? We know that when we look at babies, right? Babies already have a personality when they come here. If we all came here as a blank slate, everyone would be the exact same when we got here. We know that's not true. Just look to babies. But I think I know that leaves a lot of room for people to try to mold us into who they want us to be versus the truth that we come here already with the blueprint. We come here already with these traits, right? Passed down through our lineage, right? That we've inherited. So these things are real. So if you're looking for ways to come back into your body that are beginner friendly, breath work, something that we covered this month, right? Visualization, which we'll be talking about. Stuff to have within your toolbox so when you find yourself feeling kind of dysregulated, knowing that you've already created something to pull from, right? I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling overwhelmed. Now I know that I've created a toolbox of healing tools that exist within me. I don't have to seek this from anyone. I don't have to get on a waiting list, right? I can come within and begin the process of healing. And it's a process over time. It's a lifelong process. But knowing that you have that toolbox is everything, right? Because now you're not going to feel like I don't even know where to start. Now you know where to start. Go back to your toolbox, the things that we've already talked about, which are actually some of the simplest things, right? But can be overlooked within wellness spaces. Breath work, again, visualizing, grounding exercises, sensory activities to reawaken the power of our senses to heal. All of these things are accessible to us and they're free because our bodies come equipped with these tools, right? And so, even to recognize that so many tools already exist within us. Winsome says, I've been using an intimate personal dance to reconnect with my body, and it's been incredible. I love that. Yeah, dance. Dance can be a really powerful, again, sensory way, right? In inviting in play, exploration to heal, to reawaken the parts of ourselves that we've had to disconnect from within these environments, within these settings that are unsafe so often. How can you carve out time and space for yourself to feel a level of calm, safety, joy, right? Expression, all of these things that are intentionally like attempted to be cut from us in these environments because that's our power source. Of course, they're going to try to cut off our power source and convince us that it's childish, right? That it means nothing, that we need to seek instead healing from them, from people who have positioned themselves in a place of authority, versus turning within, again, something that indigenous communities, nations have known for thousands of years. We come equipped with tools to heal ourselves. And so that can be something to just be like, wow, once you realize that and see all the points of connection, um, and how powerful our bodies are, that can help also heal from things like body shame, which I've spoken about before. This is also tied into being the only one in these environments. The level of body shame. If you have been the only Black person, the only Black girl in educational environments, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? It does a number on your self-esteem, your self-confidence, something I'm having to rebuild at this age. And it's on purpose. It's on purpose. And so there's nothing wrong with you if you're experiencing body shame, feeling disconnected, feeling like, how do I even feel safe in my body? It makes sense within these environments that we're in that you would feel that. And also, right, there are ways to feel at home in your body. Again, all is not lost. It's a process over time of telling yourself, I'm safe. I can breathe. I can dance. I can ground myself. I can remind myself of my power, something they're trying to extract from me day after day. And that's the source of so much healing and liberation once you tap into that. Winston says, I'm teaching the Irresistible Woman Clinic, healing the sacral chakra, thereby releasing life force energy to become magnetic to manifestation. Ooh, I love that. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. Yes. That's amazing. Hello, I just joined the live. Have you already explained what somatic means? So I did a video on this on my channel, which you can find, what is somatic healing, which goes more into depth in this. But somatic just means body. So using our bodies to heal, right? The different tools that exist, sensory tools. So I know for me, inviting in different scents that are joyful, that are appealing, that are pleasurable has been healing. Sounds, music is part of somatic healing. Grounding, right? So breath work, anything that allows you to feel safe within your body and at home in your sacred vessel, that is somatic healing. So somatic just means coming into our bodies, using the tools that we come equipped with on this healing journey. That's a lifetime, right? It's a lifetime. So thank you so much for that question. Get to my banners. So disconnecting from our bodies. So we are taught within this society to only live within our heads. constantly planning, over planning, producing, right? The level of mental gymnastics, right, that we're taught to do, living only within our heads, ruminating, while our bodies carry everything that we have tried to ignore. As I mentioned before, I'm reading The Body Keeps a Score by Bessel van der Kolk, right, where he walks through basically how our bodies store the trauma that we've experienced. And something I really haven't seen talked about to the level it should, right, is how does oppression then inform that or impact that? When we're experiencing oppressive environments day after day after day, how does that level of trauma get stored within our bodies? And then how is it passed down from generation to generation, right, which is the field of epigenetics. So that's kind of the angle that I'm taking. What he shared in his book, right, which is on an individual level, how trauma has harmed us and how it's stored in our bodies. I'm viewing it from also a systemic level, knowing that as Black women, we encounter systemic oppression, intersectional oppression. And the trauma of that, how is that stored in our bodies? Over time, right? Passed down generationally, where we have not had time, space to fully heal, although we've carved out spaces for ourselves, right, to try to process what we've experienced. But if we think about over centuries, right, the impact of that, how has that shown up in our bodies? Right? That impact, I don't think that's even been touched upon truly. And so that's really the focus, what I'm like gearing my work towards, my practice towards. How do we begin to process, right? Not just mentally, which is important, spiritually, which is important, but physically. The trauma that's stored within our bodies from living, surviving in systems of oppression that try to exploit our labor, right? Extract resources, hoard resources that we need to survive. The impacts of that on our bodies is not small, right? And again, we've been taught to live just from the neck up. I was just talking with Rushdie about this, Glamazzini on YouTube, right? We're just taught to live from here. What's our mind telling us? We have a whole vessel that we can come into, right? That is containing so much information that's telling us the pathway to take, that's guiding us in the choices that feel most aligned. But we've been taught to be disconnected from our bodies because they hold so much power. A point that I always want to make, right? To emphasize, if it didn't hold so much power, they wouldn't try to disconnect us from it. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yes, thank you. Yeah. And please check out my other video. I did a whole breakdown of what somatic healing is. And I did an exercise too that is beginner friendly. If you're interested in this concept, right? Somatic just meaning body, related to the body. Something that has been overlooked. Again, having a master's degree in social work, where was healing of the body when it comes to processing trauma? It wasn't there. Because within the Western context of healing modalities, right? It's all up here. It's all in your mind. It's all in your brain. Not saying that's not important, but there's a whole other part of our vessel, right? The remaining, whatever this is, like 4/5, that's being completely overlooked. And that's truly where trauma is stored. And so that is the focus of my work now, right? Understanding how trauma has impacted us throughout generations, how it's been stored within our bodies, how it's causing things like premature death, right? Something I've experienced in my own family. And how can we understand and then unlock these ways to heal physically from what we've experienced, in addition to mentally and spiritually, which are important as well. But physically is often overlooked. Again, it's kind of written off, right? It's kind of viewed as like silly, unimportant. Beginning to interrogate this messaging, right? That's used often to um, direct us away from something that holds immense power. So even to recognize that. Winsome says, my body is now catching up with my mind and spirit. Thank you for that. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah. Yep. And it's important. It's important because it's often overlooked, right? So some common signs that you may feel: rest can feel unsafe. Your body may feel numb or tense, right? You may be seeking out things that make you feel busy all the time because you feel uncomfortable with peace. Maybe your body doesn't feel safe with peace, right? Maybe your body doesn't feel safe to rest. I spoke about this on my past video. I think it was in What is Somatic Healing. When I first came across Trisha Hersey's work, her incredible work with the NAP ministry, it took me years, right? And that's why I say this is not a quick fix. Healing is not a quick fix. It's something that you intentionally do over time, right? But I could not rest. Even though I was reading her work, I was so inspired by what she was sharing. I saw mentally the value of it, right? And the importance of it. Being the descendant of people who had rest stolen from them. Of course, I saw the importance of it. And also, I couldn't get myself to rest for years or slow down. Right. And now, just realizing at this point, I didn't feel safe to rest. I had to tell my body through somatic tools, right, that we'll be covering in the healing circle. And I'll link that again if you'd like to join us on Sunday. But I had to tell myself, my body, that it's okay. It's safe to rest. It's safe to slow down. And I don't think we talk about often enough the in between, where you know that you need to rest mentally, right? Cognitively, you know that you need to rest. You know you need to slow down because your body's likely giving you signals. And then the in between, before you get to the point where it feels natural to rest, where you can take a nap with no problem, right? Where you can put on music to soothe your nervous system, where you can breathe deeply. What is the in between, right? Between those 2 points, because that's the part that feels really messy, uncomfortable. It can feel like you're doing something wrong. And for those of us who are lifelong overachievers, when we receive these signals that it feels so uncomfortable, we might try to do away with it altogether and just go back to what we were doing. But knowing this is your body trying to slow down, right? And you have to give it messages that it's okay, right? Even saying it out loud, because the voice is part of the body and that's part of somatic healing, right? Saying it out loud. It's okay. It's okay to slow down. It's okay to rest. This is a process over time. This is not a quick fix as we're sold so often, right? In 2025 on social media, things 7-day transformation, 14-day, 30-day. No, this is a lifetime of things that I'm incorporating to slow down, to give my body the message that it's okay to rest. It's okay to slow down. I'm not just healing myself, I'm healing generations, right? I descend from a people who had rest stolen from them deliberately. And I'm healing from that too. That was also passed down to me. So it's going to be a process over time. And the more, again, if you have your toolbox of things that you can go back to, refer to, try out, explore, see what works for you, but you're incorporating them into your life as a process over time to tell your body it's okay to rest. It's okay to slow down, right? I know that I have been hypervigilant because I've been in unsafe environments for so long. And also, I'm carving out this time for myself to slow down, to rest, even if it feels uncomfortable. I know this is not a failure. Again, those of us who have been socialized to get the A, to get the star, All these memories coming back. We might feel when we experience these body sensations when we try to rest, where our body's still going, I'm doing something wrong, I'm just going to stop doing it. No, that's your body literally trying to enter into, right, this mode of rest. It doesn't feel safe yet because it's new. It's something that you may have never done or may have never seen modeled to you. And you're trying to slow down, right? So that's a process over time. And just giving your body these signals, right, through grounding, an exercise that I shared in my group healing program, Regulate to Reclaim, kind of rubbing your palms together, feeling the warmth, right? And then placing it on your chest or anywhere else that you feel tension or anxiety. That's a somatic healing tool, right? But we have been taught, again, that these things are silly, that they're ineffective, that they don't work. And usually it's the simple things that provide the most healing. So even to recognize that these messages that we receive are trying to direct us away from the things that are unlocking our true healing, our true power, our true liberation. And so reclaiming sovereignty over our bodies, right? So people have tried to take ownership and still try to take ownership over our bodies to control our labor, our image, our sexuality, our softness, our rest. This is very real, right? These campaigns, these intentional actions to try to take ownership over our bodies. From enslavement, right, to the exploitation that we experience so often in the workplace. From policing our bodies, over policing what we wear, how we show up, to perfectionism. We've been taught that our bodies are not our own, that they're someone else's to control, to tell us what to do, to exploit, to tell us how hard to work, right? What hours to work. And this exists in so many areas within society. So again, if you're having this issue that you're experiencing, I don't feel safe in my body, that makes sense. Within these environments, within the society that constantly tries to take ownership over our bodies, tries to disconnect us from the signals that they're giving us to slow down, to rest. All these things were deliberately restricted from us for generations. So it's going to feel uncomfortable, right? To lean into your full humanity, to embrace it, to embrace your body's signals. So if you feel that initial discomfort, try to lean into that. That would be my advice, right? Try to lean into that instead of lean out of it. Knowing that you're doing something new, you're taking ownership over your body within a society that tries to tell you that your body is not yours. So it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel awkward. It's going to feel, how do I even do this? Taking a deep breath can be a first start. Right? The biggest ways of healing, the most effective, are usually in the simple things. So even now, right, in workplaces that demand our constant productivity, in systems that do not protect or value our health, in a culture that rewards exhaustion, overworking, performing, proving for other people, we see how many points, right, this is showing up. Of course, it's going to be difficult to rest, to feel at home within your body. Of course. Right? So these things become a point of resistance when you're able to establish boundaries around your well-being, when you're able to breathe deeply, to ground yourself in the present moment, to reactivate the areas of your brain where you're able to strategize, you're able to plan long term, you're not just in survival mode as they want us to be in. right? And so you're resisting. And that's why it can feel uncomfortable too. You are resisting so many intersecting systems of oppression, right? And thank you to Kimberly Crenshaw for coining that term, intersectionality. You are resisting so many systems by prioritizing yourself and taking ownership over your body. That's not small, right? Reclaiming your body is reclaiming your sovereignty. You are saying, when you engage in, again, somatic healing processes, somatic just meaning related to the body, that's all it means. Coming into your body, taking a deep breath, slowing down, resting. You're saying, my energy belongs to me. My peace belongs to me. My pace, my rest, my joy, these all belong to me. You're taking sovereignty over your body. In a society that tries to tell us that other people have ownership over our vessels, the vessel that was designed specifically for me, right, to house my life force, my energy, you have ownership over it. How did that happen? So beginning to unpack this to understand the different points of connection. When this started, when you started becoming disconnected from your body. And now, what is the path home? What does that look like? Does it look like breath work, a somatic tool? Music, a somatic healing tool. Nature walks, a somatic healing tool. Gentle movement, stretching, dance. All of these things, again, we're taught are silly, they're off limits to us, they're not effective. Start to interrogate that. Is that true? Is that true? Or is that a message deliberately told to us to try to get us off the path of our power? Right? And so this reclamation of self is physiological. It's something you feel, right? And that is the mind body connection in healing. The society tries to disconnect us from the other 4/5 of our body and just keep us in this 1/5, right? Up here in our brain. What are we thinking? Can we analyze it? What about all the messages that our bodies are giving us in the other 4/5? That this place doesn't feel safe. Again, if I think about my own experience in a toxic work environment, yeah, logically, yeah, it was good on paper, but it was harming me physically, right? But I had been taught to be cut off from the messages that my body was trying to give me for my entire life, really. And now just coming into this point, like, oh, all this time, the headaches, the migraines, right? The gastric issues, stomach issues, right? All of these things that I had been experiencing, these were messages from my body trying to tell me, this environment is unsafe. This person is unsafe. But if you're taught to override your body's messages with logic, you're not even going to like pay attention to those signals. And it makes sense, again, within the society that we're socialized in. So something to think about. Yes, taking our bodies back is revolutionary. It is. Yeah. If we think about over centuries, again, this is not just in present day. This is not just 2025. This is not just individually. This is ancestral. Reclaiming our bodies, not just for ourselves, right, but for our lineage. Unlocking these tools and the power that we have within us internally to heal versus viewing it as something to seek from someone who has, right, and as someone with the letters, right, but someone who has the letters, someone who has the credentials. Unlocking these tools that we have within ourselves to heal, which is often the simplest things that we do, probably without even thinking about it, but intentionally using them as ways to heal That's the path often. But it feels so simple, and we're taught to not trust simple or easy, which is, again, an oppressive message. Because simple and easy often means aligned. And so they want us off that path as well. Okay. So when you have lived, talking about the mind-body connection, healing, when you have lived in stress or trauma, your brain and body learn to prioritize survival. So your amygdala may be overactive, which is the part of your brain, right, that really responds to your fear. When you're in your fear mode, your fight, flight, freeze, that's your amygdala working. When that happens, we're taken out of the parts of our brain that are able to kind of make sense of things, to plan long term, to strategize. And so just to think about the amount of times, maybe the amount of years that you have been living in survival mode, right? And we wonder why these things like planning, I can just speak from my experience, like trying to plan my exit out of a job was so difficult, right? Which is why Dr. Kamani and I have created the summit, the Job Liberation Summit. Because having a sense of community to support you through that process when it feels impossible because you're in a fear state, you're being traumatized, right? Your brain's not working in its full capacity because of what's happened to you. And trying to plan your exit while you're in that state, it's so difficult. And so just to know that it's not you, right? Your body's responding to the amount of trauma that you have experienced, endured, and you might be disconnected from those signals, right? Because you're in survival mode. So you have to show your body that it's safe, right? You have to physically sometimes tell your body, like I just shared this exercise, rubbing your palms together, placing right wherever you're carrying tension. You have to physically tell your body that you're safe, that you can breathe, that you can rest. It's a practice over time. And it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel, am I doing this right? It's going to feel awkward, especially if it's been years since you have rested, or if you've never rested at all. If you're used to breathing shallowly versus deeply, anything that you change is going to have a level of discomfort, right, when you first do it. But over time, as you tell your body, it's okay for me to breathe deeply. It's okay for me to ground myself in the present moment. It's okay for me to walk outside in nature. You have to physically tell your body that, right? To process the trauma that our bodies have stored. And so as Black women, this is why our liberation is both mental and somatic, also spiritual, right? But somatic as well, somatic meaning related to the body. That's it. Liberation exists within our bodies, right? Our bodies have carried generations of hypervigilance, of grief that has been unprocessed. So our healing has to include the body too, right? We can't talk about healing without talking about the body. Again, the other 4/5, we're just taught to healing just exists in our minds, talking through what we experienced, which can be helpful, but that's just 1/5 of the equation. Where's the other 4/5? Right? Where's the music to help us heal by hearing, right? Reactivating our senses. Where's the breath work? Where's the scents that bring pleasure, right? Lavender, eucalyptus. All of these things that we can activate that we have within us, right? The other 4/5 of healing. right? And I don't know why this is bringing up the three-fifths compromise. That's a whole different topic, but right, still within the Constitution telling us that we're three-fifths of a human being. And so it makes sense, this level of dehumanization that has occurred, that we would be disconnected from our bodies and feel like we're just up here. We don't have these tools that exist within us. We do. It's been a while since we have tapped in for a lot of us, right? Thinking about through generations, it may be centuries since we've tapped into these tools that our ancestors used and knew very well. And so that's why it's going to feel uncomfortable too. You're reawakening as a cycle breaker, because often my channel, like, we're a community of cycle breakers, right? We're kind of forging new paths, but they're also paths that have already existed that we're reawakening. And so including the body when we're healing is essential. And so again, if you're looking to learn different tools to heal through simple things, breathing, stretching, right? Joyful movement, reactivating your senses, music, all of these things are healing. They're somatic healing tools. They're not silly, right? They're not things that can be overlooked. No, they are healing. They are. And we know, right? Something I've experienced working with my clients, putting on music. Like, oh my God, I feel so much different. So much like different, right? When I put on music, when I allow myself to dance, I feel like myself. Yeah, that's healing. That's healing. Right. And so any of these things that you're probably already doing, just recognizing the, I think, enormous power that they have to help us process grief, trauma around what we have experienced, and help us come back home to ourselves. And so a beginner friendly somatic practice that I'm going to walk us through, called a return to the body. So if it feels comfortable, again, what we've been doing, rubbing our palms together, this is a somatic healing tool, right? You're bringing the energy that you're creating with your palms to a part of your body that feels tense or where you feel anxiety. So rubbing your palms together and placing your hand wherever that is, where you feel tense or anxious. Breathing deeply, inhaling, exhaling. Just noticing where you feel your body holding tension without judgment. And then can you send your breath there when you breathe in again? Can you send your breath? I'm going to do it one more time. Can you send your breath to the place where you're holding tension or experiencing anxiety? Breathing in, exhaling. And noticing how you feel before you did the exercise and then after you did it. That is somatic healing. That's a healing tool that exists within us. It's free. All we used was the energy that we generated by rubbing our palms together, placing it on the area that we were carrying tension, taking a deep breath in, sending the breath to the area where we're feeling tense, and then exhaling. That's it. Right? And then affirming to yourself, my body is mine. My body is mine. I get to decide what rest, what pace, and what peace mean for me. And that is somatic healing. So again, if you are looking to gain tools to heal, I do want to share this real quick. So I will be hosting, facilitating a healing circle this Sunday, October 26th, 5 p.m. Eastern. I always get confused, 4 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Pacific. But it also be recorded too if you can attend live. So here's a link to register, bit.ly/calm in chaos circle. I should have made that shorter, but yes, and we'll be walking through some of the tools that we just covered, right, in this live to center ourselves, to ground ourselves, to release performance, perfectionism, to unlock the healing power within our bodies that we come equipped with. Again, I have to say that repeatedly. We come fully equipped, right? We don't come here as a blank slate. We come here fully equipped. And then how can we tap into these things? Through simple exercises that I just walked through today, right? Returning to our bodies, building our toolkit. And that's the purpose of the circle. So join us this Sunday to participate. I think we have 16 people registered so far. So thank you if you've already registered. But yeah, this is the focus of my practice as a healing practitioner, right? A social worker, finding where I can really bridge the points of intersectional oppression that we experience as Black women and ancestral healing. So reawakening these different healing tools that have existed for thousands of years, that feel new, they feel kind of, right, new, can be uncomfortable, can feel a little bit awkward. Know that you're not doing it wrong if you're feeling any of those things. What you're doing is reawakening, right, an ancestral memory, something that we have had within us that has been suppressed. We've been told to look away, to go a different direction, to seek these things outside of ourselves. And we're coming home, right? We're returning, we're remembering all these things that have already existed within us. And so I want to thank you so much for being here, for reclaiming your body, understanding the mind-body connection and healing. Again, I'm Marissa Price. I'm a liberatory healing practitioner helping Black women come home to ourselves, reclaim our authenticity, feel at home and safe within our bodies again, process trauma, and yeah, build community. So I want to thank you if you're here live. Thank you for joining us, for sharing what you shared. If you're watching the replay, thank you for watching the replay. And please subscribe if you're interested in content like this in the future. Around healing, I have wonderful, amazing guests who have come on, shared their journey, how they've healed from toxic experiences, right? Traumatic things that they have encountered, and come back home to their power. Because that's not the end of your story. And I think I'm going to do a video on this later today. Probably upload it maybe tomorrow, right? There's another chapter. There's another chapter. That's not the end of your story, what you experienced. And so processing, right? Healing, crying, releasing, getting angry about what you experienced, that's all part of healing. But knowing that there's also another chapter is so important. And so thank you for being here. Appreciate you. You're welcome, Winsome. Thank you for being here. Thanks, Marissa. We appreciate you. Thank you for this. But yeah, y'all, until next time, I don't think I have another live schedule right now, but I may do a video on turning to the other chapter, right? Turning to the next chapter in your story instead of feeling like this is the end of your book, because it's not. Got to keep going. And we're here to support you. All right, y'all. Thank you. Until next time. Bye.